What is up, Coug fans? Today we have on QB1 for the Washington State Cougars, Zevi Eckhaus. In this episode, we dive deep into how he made it out to the Palouse after 3 stellar seasons at FCS level Bryant, his perspective of this season, his opportunity in the Holiday Bowl, the story behind those in-and-out socks, the hire of Jimmy Rogers, and why he's staying for one more year at Washington State. If you want more interviews with WSU players like this, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. If you're listening to an audio-only platform, make sure to give the Couch GM podcast a 5-star review. Leave a comment below on who you'd like us to interview next, and give this a share to a fellow Coug fan. And this episode is sponsored by Black Label Supplements. They're a third-party tested, athlete-approved supplement company here in the Pacific Northwest. They're my go-to for all things pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, any supplementation. You can visit blacklabelsupplements.com, use code CouchGM for 15% off. And as always, if you or someone you know is thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing a property on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, or Arizona, make sure to reach out to myself, Connor Webb, the Couch GM, as I'm actually a full-time mortgage broker when I'm not making sports videos. And it's my goal to help as many sports fans, athletes, and fellow Coug alum get into the home of their dreams. I'll have a link in the description of this video if you'd like to reach out and connect. And with that, let's get into the episode with Zevi. Zevi, thank you for joining the podcast. First off, a big congratulations on the Holiday Bowl, having that opportunity and just absolutely balling out in your first, big game this year. So again, thank you for coming on the podcast and excited to learn more about you and your story.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start right where we left off camera. The news was that the first in-person team meeting has been moved to Wednesday due to the snow up in Pullman, and some guys had trouble, including yourself, in getting their flights into Pullman. You flew into Boise, and you actually ended up running into a few teammates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not sure what was going on entirely with the whole travel situation, but yeah, ran into Gage, McKenzie, Potter, Jackson Potter at the airport. They were all on the same connecting flight as me to Pullman, and yeah, that flight never took ground. So we ended up, hitting a little audible, taking a rental car, making a 6-hour drive back to Pullman, and we're back. So everything worked out.
Made it safely, no big, like sliding around on the road, anything like that?
No, there was at one point it was getting a little icy, but I just took it super slow. There was no rush for us to get back at a certain time. Obviously with the meeting being canceled, so we just took it nice and slow, and we got back. We didn't get back in too late, so hopefully those boys got some nice rest.
Being the quarterback, did you take the wheel?
I did take the wheel.
You took the wheel. Okay.
Being the oldest and the quarterback, I took it upon myself to drive that vehicle.
Well, I definitely want to get into a bit of your background and your upbringing, down the road. But let's start with the past month. It's been a eventful past month for yourself and for the team in general. For starting off with the Holiday Bowl, let's just get into, the regular season ends. There's some rumors. There's transfer portal that's happening. There's the coaching change that ends up happening. Can you just walk us through your experience with the past month?
Sure. Yeah, it was kind of one of those scenarios where you just gotta, adapt on the fly. I think one of the biggest things that football teaches you, is that things that you plan out, don't always go the way you expected them to go. There's going to be changes to your plans. There's going to be different motives, different motivations. It's constantly changing. I think that's the beauty in it as well. So this was obviously a very, abrupt and, just higher magnitude of change that was happening. But, at the end of the day, the same rules still apply. I felt like as everything was changing, just take it for what it was and what it is, and continue to move on and continue to try to find, ways to improve your current situation and improve the guys around you. I think that was the biggest thing that I was at least had a forefront on my mind. You can't control what other people decide to do. They're going to do, what's best for them and what's best for their future, and you have to respect that at the end of the day. But what you can control is, the attitude that you bring and the words that you say to the guys around you and the words that you say to yourself even. So I think the biggest thing for me was just, regardless of the change, regardless of who it was, regardless of what was happening, just continuing to be the guy that I am, and trying to help, others around me. I think that was the biggest thing for me, at least my mindset with everything that was happening.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, you spoke to the media, I think your second day of practice down at the Holiday Bowl. And, one quote that I took from you that I really liked was, about that plan. You said, I think the most important thing is that sometimes the plan you set out for yourself doesn't always go the way that you envisioned it. I think it's important that if you set a goal, no matter what path takes you there, that you stick to that path. And just from like, out of a journalism standpoint and just from like a Cougs standpoint, it was really, really great to see you and other team leaders lead WSU the way you guys did that week, because the fans, they needed it. They really needed that. And when you crossed the pylon for that 4-yard touchdown run to open up the scoring in the Holiday Bowl, you could see all the Cougs in the stadium kind of just let out a giant gasp of air that they've been holding for weeks. I mean, did you guys kind of feel that energy-wise in the stadium early on?
Oh yeah, the energy was there. I mean, that was first off, one of the longest first quarters I've ever been a part of. Oh my God. But second off, yeah, I mean, just so much energy. It was flowing, throughout the sidelines, throughout the stands. I mean, you could hear it, you could feel it, you could sense it. I mean, it was amazing. And someone for me, who obviously hasn't played that much this previous year, just being back out there, and then at that level of magnitude, that you're talking about from the crowd and from the sideline, it was just an unreal experience. I mean, it really felt like an outer body experience, that game. And I took the time after the game to walk on the sidelines and just, say thank you to all the fans that were there. And I mean, so many fans stuck around, just to say a couple nice words. So that was nice. That was nice that there's still a lot of people and, this Cougar fan base that are loyal to us and that are still there. And as they should be. I think that we're still building something great here. And we're making steps in the right direction. But to your point, yeah, it was really, really nice being on the sideline and just kind of feeling that energy from everybody.
You end up throwing for 363 yards, 3 touchdowns. You get a running touchdown as well. You help Kyle Williams set the Holiday Bowl receiving record. What was the experience of that game overall and being able to help Kyle break that record? And, after it's all said and done, looking back at what you just went through.
Yeah, like I said, it was truly an outer body experience, especially that first snap. It's just like the best way that I was able to explain it to like my friends was it felt like it was like an opening scene of NCAA, like the video game. Like
Yeah.
you're just standing there and like you see like you look to your right and you see the corners like getting low staring at you. I mean, it was just like it took a minute for my body to actually, my mind comprehend like, okay, this is like real, this is happening, which was awesome. It really was an awesome experience. Being out there and playing, football again, playing football with those guys, that meant a lot to me. As for Kyle Williams, I mean, the performance says everything about the kid. He's a hard worker. He's a very, very talented football player. He's a great friend. He really checks off all the boxes. And I'm not even sure he knew that he was close to that milestone. It kind of became a conversation later on in the fourth quarter, that he was close to it. And once I found out, the landmark he needed, we were going to make sure he was going to eclipse that. There was no doubt about it, and to be, I guess the person throwing him the passes to break that record, it's an honor, especially for someone like Kyle Williams, who's worked so hard and been so loyal to this, program ever since he's gotten here. So like I said, just a really, really great experience, for me, for the team, for Kyle, for everybody.
Kyle, it was announced, added to the East-West Shrine Bowl game. And, obviously Kyle, he didn't have to play that game and we won't beat a dead horse here, but, I think one of the things you said about Kyle was, I think that just says something about his character in terms of playing the game. For all the scouts and the NFL guys that are kind of looking at Kyle Williams, we've had a lot of guys that kind of tank ship. We've had coaches that have left. Through it all, Kyle Williams has still stuck it in and stayed here with us. And it was almost similar to the Mike Evans 1,000-yard reception with Baker yesterday, where you knew Baker was going to get that for him. And it was a very similar situation with you as the gunslinger. with, 2 clutch passes at the end. And then, you guys got him the record, and then you were able to throw a touchdown to Brandon. And I apologize. I'm going to totally butcher his last name.
Go
it's
for
the
it.
second longest last name in Coug history. Zevi, can you help me out?
Ganashaworthy.
Ganashaworthy. What was it like to see guys like that, who have worked their butt off all year to get that moment as well?
It was nice. It was nice. I think that drive, and man, it sucks that we couldn't win that game, but I think that final drive, just showed everybody, the fight that this team had, through everything that happened. In that point of the game, it was essentially over. We weren't going to win the game, but every guy that stepped on that football field during that final drive, all 11 of those guys, I mean, they poured their heart into every single play, and it showed. You don't go down. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. You don't go down and just score a touchdown, with not caring, with not giving it your all. This is college football. Everybody's good. Everybody's talented. You have to be dedicated. You have to be applying yourself, and all those guys did. And then to see, for sure we call him BG, to see BG to score that touchdown. I was with BG a lot, running with the twos and throughout practices this year. So for him to be able to get that touchdown, I know it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to me for sure. And it just kind of finished off, our season with a more optimistic, sentence than something negative. We finished off with an exclamation point, not just a period. And that's something that we want to carry over into this next season. So it was nice to get BG in the end zone. It was nice to finish off the season on a higher note. But yeah, I was proud of the guys for that one.
Last thing on the Holiday Bowl for me, when did those In-N-Out Cup socks become a thing? Those are sweet.
Thank you. So that's another interesting story. So it kind of came to my head a couple weeks prior, not for the Holiday Bowl itself. I was just talking with some of the receivers. I think one of them were wearing like some Supreme socks, and I was like, dude, In-N-Out socks would be like really nice. And that was like, it didn't go any further. And then it was a day before the game itself, and I remembered it. And I called my mom, and I was like, hey, what are the chances you could buy these socks? And so she went to In-N-Out. Apparently they don't sell them in store. So my mom, miracle worker, I swear she's a miracle worker. She ordered them online, and I actually asked Kyle Williams if he wanted a pair. He said yes. If you guys look at the pictures, he's wearing the same socks.
Okay.
My mom ordered 2 pairs, and she brought them to me about an hour before our bus took off to the game. Yeah, she dropped them off. She gave them to me, and then I gave them to Kyle when we got to the locker room. And yeah, and we rocked out with them. I didn't think it was going to get as much attention as it did, but it was cool that it did. But if there's anybody that deserves some attention, it's my mom for getting those things. She, oh my gosh, I have no idea how she got those socks ordered and delivered in like 20 hours, but she made it happen.
That's amazing, and a bit cheaper than Supreme socks.
Definitely cheaper than some Supreme socks.
My last question with the Holiday Bowl, I guess. Do you remember the 4th and 2? You guys didn't convert in the first half, and you got stood up. And Zevi, a couple of us, like, we looked at each other on the sideline. You got carried by the Syracuse defense. Was that the football version of a bar mitzvah to you?
I was gonna. That's actually hilarious. You said that.
Flashbacks.
In that moment, I literally felt like I was back in my bar mitzvah again. Yeah, it was a bar mitzvah holiday edition. That's literally that's as close as you can get to it, on the football field at least. But
I turned and looked. Was like, Mike, what is going on here?
Yeah, that was very bar mitzvah-esque for sure.
We're finally clear on that, and we can thank the In-N-Out socks for breaking a record as well.
Let's do it. Shout out In-N-Out.
And then after the Holiday Bowl, walk us through these past few weeks. There's the coaching change that ends up happening. You entered the transfer portal. You come out of the transfer portal the same day as Josh Meredith. Walk us through those couple weeks after the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah. So after the Holiday Bowl, I really just wanted to take some time to myself and just spend some time with my family. There wasn't really much thought going on regarding the football aspect. Obviously, the coaching change happened. Heard about that. And then, there were some like rumors and things going on about their former quarterback, hitting the portal, and I wasn't too sure, what that was going to entail. I had talked to Coach Rogers previously, but that relationship is still new between us. Um, and I did put my name into the portal. Um, it wasn't really much of a I want to get out of here, and I expressed that to Coach Rogers before I went into the portal. I wanted to make sure that I spoke with him because I knew that there was a strong chance that I would be coming back, and I don't, regardless of whether I was or wasn't, I don't want to burn bridges with anybody. That's just not the type of person I am, and I feel like that would have been, yeah, just immature and childish of me. So, I made sure that he was fully aware, and I had been talking with him, um, and I mean, I wasn't in the portal long, and once I had found out that it was more likely that this guy wasn't coming over here, I was like, all right, let me get back in this boat then. And that, that's why that happened so quickly. Um, but yeah, and then, ever since then, been talking with the coaches of the new staff. I'm actually going to get the chance to meet them today. I couldn't yesterday because of the whole flight situation, but yeah, I'm eager to meet them. I'm really excited. I mean, they're, when you're playing at Bryant University in the FCS, South Dakota State is like the Bama, or however, you want to rank them of the FCS. So, there's some cool guys to me. So I'm really excited to meet them and introduce myself and whatnot.
And just kind of diving into that, it seems like a very similar situation with Josh. It's like we totally understand what the new age of football is, and like I think common football people know what you did in terms of like, hey, you gotta be able to equip yourself for the future as well, and find the best spot for you going forward, whether that was here or somewhere else. But what did Jimmy Rogers say? Was there anything that he did to convince you? Like, what was that convo like with him to return?
Yeah, he just, he expressed his desire to have me on this team. He expressed, his belief in my ability to lead this team. And that's the biggest thing for me is I have 1 year left to play, and the most important thing is playing football. Like obviously in this day and age, especially with the transfer portal, a lot of money is obviously thrown around, but the money wasn't the prominent factor for me. You don't get, I wasn't getting paid at FCS, so it's not like my biggest desire was to get money. The biggest thing is to play, and then after the Holiday Bowl game, it even proved more of my point. Like I just want to play. Like you can't replicate that feeling. So he expressed his desire to have me on the team, and and like I said, expressed his belief in my ability to run the team and lead this program. And that's a lot for me, because that's essentially what I want to do. I can't control what happens after college, and where my career takes me, but while I'm still in college, I want to maximize every single minute, that I can. And I want to play football. I want to play football. That's the most important, factor. So, those were just some of the things that he said to me. I'm sure there are other things that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but that was big for me.
You tried to help with re-recruiting players that are currently on the roster, being a team leader?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've reached out to some of the guys. Some of them already, have their mind made up, and others, have really, really good opportunities. I think the biggest thing for me is when I do talk to these guys, I'm not trying to sell them some fake, story. I know how it goes. I'm a player who took advantage of the transfer portal myself. So, if there's an opportunity for them, that lies somewhere else, I will never be the one to say, hey, don't do that. It's not good for you, or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, I really want what's best for these guys, and just the nature of football. If it's not one guy, it's going to be another. So if we do lose a guy, then there's going to be somebody else who can play that position and play just as good, if not better. I mean, that's just how the nature of the sport works. So I'm trying my best with some of the guys, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, and I would never want to deter them away from an opportunity that could be really life changing for them.
Have you had any conversations with Jimmy or with Danny Freund yet? I imagine you might not have, but on what the plan might be for offense next year. I know that, with WSU, it was the air raid. I don't know what type of offense he ran at Bryant necessarily, but have you had any of those conversations yet?
No. A lot of our conversations have just been an introduction and getting to know each other a little bit. I plan on going in and talking with him today a little bit, and maybe we can start going over some of the football aspects of things. But as of right now, it's just been more getting to know the guy. Introduce myself. If he needs help with any recruiting or talking to any guys, those are the majority of the conversations we've been having. But not football yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
What are your first impressions of, I guess, Danny Freund's offense and what they're bringing here, or maybe what you've seen with South Dakota State over the past couple of years as just an eyeball?
Yeah, I mean, they win games. They win football games. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, the air raid is really, really fun to play, under as a quarterback. But it's not like their quarterback has had poor passing performances, over the past couple of years. They will throw the football. And like I said, the most important factor is winning games. I think that for me, that is like the most important factor, was the game won at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter how it gets done. Now, I'm not saying I want to go in every game and, throw for under 100 yards. And I don't think that would happen. What I'm saying is if I do end up throwing for 100 yards and we win the game, then I'm satisfied. That's the most important, stat that matters at the end of the day. So I know they win games. I know that they win football games, and the plan for success that they've had for the past couple of years works. So I'm excited to see what that entails, to see what it looks like, and to see how I can help it, grow.
The saying is defense wins championships, and all the research that we've done on Jimmy Rogers, his staff, South Dakota State, their success, they have a solid defense. They put up points, but they also prevent points, which is huge. And especially looking at WSU's, year this year, the offense was having to really catch up and win those games. So to have a guy that's coming in that's a defense focus, I think is going to be a great shift to see.
Yeah. My roommate, Parker McKenna, he's a linebacker here. He was really excited about him. He was telling me about how he went in yesterday and introduced himself to the coaches, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited to like be under this defense. I think it'll be really successful. Like, I like the way that they include the linebackers. Obviously, he says that he's a linebacker, but he was pretty fired up about it, which was cool to see from him. So I think that'd probably be, more of the general opinion of the guys in the locker room right now. I think everybody's kind of excited. This is a winning program that they came from. They're going to bring the winning culture over here. I think a lot of the guys, it's a change, it's different, but I think it's an exciting change.
So now that we have heard about some of the current and the future of WSU and yourself, let's throw it back to your upbringing, to the high school days, to the FCS Bryant days, and some of your background before you got to the Palouse. So walk us through. It looks like you grew up in LA. You were a standout. You were named Los Angeles Times QB of the Year one year. Walk us through your high school days, being recruited, how you made it out to Bryant, all the way across the country in Rhode Island, growing up in LA.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So recruitment was very, very slim for me in high school. Culver City, they do run the air raid. Like the true air raid, they don't have any tight ends. Everything's out of the gun, straight Tempe or zero personnel. We threw the ball a lot, so we'd average around 3.5 to 4,000 yards a year, anywhere from 50 to 60 passing touchdowns. I mean, it was awesome. It was literally awesome. Like it was a dream as a high school quarterback. Really didn't pick up offers until my junior year. It was my first offer was William and Mary. I believe they're down in Virginia. They were my first offer. They had a coaching staff change and they pulled the offer. And then it wasn't until like closer to COVID where then I got my first offer that stayed, and that was Colgate University in New York. Then shortly after, I got Sacred Heart, which is down in Connecticut, and then I got Bryant, which is obviously in Rhode Island. So it's kind of like the smaller FCS schools. Never really got any big interest, from any other from any FBS or other FCS schools. Like I said, it was for me, like at that moment in time, very surprisingly, like under recruited. I was like, I'm putting up all these numbers and I'm seeing all these guys around me getting 4 stars, 5 stars, getting this offer, that offer. I genuinely didn't like know what I was doing wrong. But we kept pushing on. COVID obviously happened. And then schools were limited on scholarships and how many they can give out because obviously kids were coming back. They were giving that year back. And a kid committed to Colgate, so I ended up losing that offer. Kid committed to Sacred Heart, ended up losing that offer. And it was just down to Bryant. And they were telling me how they really wanted me to commit, but if this guy that was coming in on a visit ended up committing, they would have to take the offer away. So fortunately for me, the kid doesn't end up committing, but fortunately, I was getting ready to hold out and think that, maybe we're going to get like a spring season, which we ended up getting 5 games. But what I didn't know is that they weren't giving out offers anymore. Like that I wasn't going to get another scholarship offer. So very fortunate for me that that kid didn't commit because, fast forward like 2 months later, this is January now of 2021. I'm kind of sitting in there and, I'm talking to my friends and he's like, dude, you just got to commit. Like you got to take this school. And if some drastic change happens and cool, but like, you got to go to college. I was like, yeah, you're right. So I called up Bryant, told him I was committed, made it official. And yeah, like I said, it was a very fortunate situation because I didn't end up, getting another offer. There was nothing else out there. So essentially left high school with one offer, the school that I ended up committing to, which is Bryant University, all the way in Smithfield, Rhode Island. How did they find me? I have no idea. I don't know why, they were recruiting all the way down there, but I mean, I was one of like maybe 4 kids from California at that school. So at least on the football team. But yeah, I was one of the calls. I made it down there to Smithfield, Rhode Island. Where I didn't think I was going to have as much fun as I did, but I really did enjoy my time over there. I learned a lot, grew a lot as a person, as a teammate, as a leader, as a player. It was truly like a very, very humbling experience. I think I went into it with a little bit of a bigger head than I should have, which is kind of understandable, being a young, high school kid. But it definitely humbled me quick. And yeah, I stayed longer than I had previously envisioned I was going to. And I don't regret it. I had a great time, and I knew that after that junior year, I had sights set out for myself that were, a little bit bigger than Bryant. And I think, the coaches understood that, the players understood that. There was never any, bad beef between me and anybody when I left. I still talk to that head coach, to this day, and we, check in with each other, and the players on the team as well. So, I definitely knew, like, as it was, winding down, that it was going to be my time was up there, and, ended up in the transfer portal, was committed to Jacksonville State about
Rich Rod.
Yeah. Rich Rod, great guy. He was cool to be around on my visit. And I committed to them like December, like 17th or 18th. And I remember I was getting ready to head out like the 4th or the 5th of January. And I was at like a LA Kings game, watching the hockey, and Coach Buck calls me, and I texted him because I was pretty set on Jacksonville State, and I just texted him. I was like, hey, I'm at a Kings game, I won't be able to hear you. And he's like, give me a call after. I was like, game's not gonna end until like 10:30. He's like, give me a call after. I'm like, all right, so I get to the car after the game, and he gets me on the phone, and he's saying how obviously Cam left. There's an open spot. If I want it, it's all mine. Mind you, I have a flight in 36 hours to New York to grab my car and drive down to Jacksonville State, where they have an apartment already set up for me. And I'm like, I gotta think this over. And he's like, all right, like I'll call you in the morning. I mean, he called me like in the morning, like as soon as I woke up, he was calling, and I was like, I haven't really thought about it. I'm going to a throwing session right now. I'll talk about it, with my people there, and I'll give you an answer as soon as I'm done. He was like, cool. You know, I talked to my QB coach and another friend of mine, and he said, you just got to go with your gut, you know. And my gut really wanted Washington State, you know, so I got him back on the phone, and I basically told him, like, yeah, I'm ready. You know, let's do this thing. And, you know, that was all she wrote. It was a very, very interesting conversation with the fellows at, you know, Jacksonville State. But similar to, you know, my communication with Coach Rogers before I entered the portal, I felt like, you know, it was professional to reach out to the coaches at Jacksonville State and kind of let them know instead of just, hitting like an Irish goodbye. So I called them and kind of, you know, filled them in on the situation and what was going to happen. Um, some were a little frustrated, some were understanding, but, you know, it was what it was. And yeah, the rest is kind of history and still writing itself with Wazoo.
I want to back it up too a little bit, just to that freshman year. You said you came in maybe with a bigger head than you'd like, but you also came in with a giant chip on your shoulder. Just for everybody, he started that year. He was the NEC Offensive Rookie of the Year, All NEC First Team, finalist for the FCS Jerry Rice Award, where he finished fourth. It was the greatest season for a freshman in school history at Bryant. You were 62.8% completion percentage. You threw for 2,392 yards, 21 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's a hell of a freshman year after only one scholarship offer. I think that just goes to show Cougs and everybody around, like, you work your ass off.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It was an interesting season for sure. We had a transfer quarterback from James Madison, who was, you know, pretty much the starter. And it was the second quarter of our first game, ends up fracturing his Lisfranc out for the season. And they kind of threw me in there. And you know, I had already been humbled from a practice and a workout experience, but I hadn't been humbled from a game experience yet. And we played University of Rhode Island, and they're a pretty good team down in the CAA. And they definitely put it on us. I mean, we lost by, I think it was 24. It's like 45-21. And I remember walking off that field, and you know, we were really good in high school, as a lot of guys were, and you know, and I hadn't experienced a double-digit loss like that. You know, since maybe like Pop Warner. I mean, I barely like played quarterback that much, and especially when you're the quarterback, you know, you definitely feel the loss a little bit more. I remember walking off that field and just that feeling of letting like my teammates down because I was so unprepared. You know, that one really stung me, and I made sure to, you know, get in with my coaches that, you know, that next week and really throughout the whole year, and just try to learn as much as possible without overloading myself. You know. And the coaches did a great job of adapting their offense to my skill set. And yeah, you know, it ended up being a pretty successful year. You know, I mean, besides for the first loss at the beginning of the year, we ended up going 7-3 from there. You know, it was a really, really great year. But like I said, a very, very humbling experience. Definitely there was a chip on my shoulder, but you know, a humbling experience, I think, was the most important thing that I learned, you know, because it taught me that it doesn't matter what level, you know, or what position you're at. Football is football. You know, everybody's good, and if you don't bring your A game every single day, you know, eventually somebody's going to get past you. You got to work hard. You know, you have to work hard. Some people can get away with it, but that only lasts for so long. You know, and I didn't want it to be short lived. So, you know, definitely, like I said, learned a lot, you know, from that experience, about my work ethic, about how I approach certain things. And yeah, it was a very, very unique freshman year.
Just one thing I got to touch on at Bryant again. Fast forwarding to your junior season, you end up becoming the Big South Offensive Player of the Year, first team, a finalist for the Walter Payton Award, which is the MVP essentially at the FCS level. You finished, you know, just shy of 63% completion rate, over 2,900 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, third nationally in total offense and passing touchdowns, and the list goes on. Walk me through that final junior season. You ball out, and then you find the opportunity at WSU.
Yeah. That year, offensively, we were kind of struggling at first. We were having a hard time, putting it all together. One of our top receivers was battling an injury throughout the year, and ended up being sidelined a majority of the year. But we had a bunch of guys on that team that were last year guys, whether it was a fifth year, true senior, whatever the case may be. And I think we were just pressing a little too much. We knew that this was kind of the last year that all of these guys who had been here for 2 or 3 years, were going to be together. And I think that we had, set out very big goals for each other, which isn't a bad thing. But I think that we were pressing on those goals a little bit too much rather than just playing football. And towards the back half of the year, I think we kind of understood that, and things just started clicking for us. We were just executing at a very, very high level. There wasn't much, fuss or tension between the guys. It just started flowing very fluidly, offensively. After the games, in the beginning of the season, even if it was a win, we were like, all right, well, this didn't feel right. This didn't look right. We could have got this there, which isn't a bad thing. But when it becomes, the emphasis over winning the game itself, and then it can become a problem. And I think we just got back to the fundamentals, back to the basics, towards that back half of the year. And it didn't really matter who was, having the bigger game or who was getting the touchdowns. As long as we were winning the game, that was all that mattered. And, while that was happening, people were also getting more successful opportunities. Like while we were just playing selflessly, everybody was kind of, accumulating more yards or more touches or more touchdowns or more tackles, whatever it was. I think we just started, playing as one towards the back half. And that was really, really cool, for me, to be the quarterback and a leader of that team, kind of seeing all that take place. It was a nice feeling, especially, with it being my last year at Bryant.
And we got about 5 more minutes, so I want to get to you to class, but do you have a couple more questions about this season? So, you've been the starter your entire career up to that point. You have, the battle in the fall for the number 1 spot. What was the experience to, be the backup this year and maybe help the team from a different point of view?
Yeah, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot, It taught me that, even when you don't get things the way that you want, you still got to give your all. It's a lot bigger than, just about you. There are guys that, still depend. At the end of the day, the quarterback is a position that people depend on, and a position that people will always look at, and how you carry yourself, will reflect a lot of the guys around you. And that was the biggest thing for me, is that, I'm going to show up every single day, and I have reps with these twos. And it's up to me to make sure that, number one, we're doing our job, and number two, the coaches see what they want to see from this. Like, I got to make sure that all these guys are getting better. I got to make sure that BG's hands are ready in case a receiver goes down. I got to make sure that somebody from the O line is doing his pass set or getting to his run block landmarks, because he could be playing. So whatever I could do to get those guys going, to make sure that they were doing those things, I took it upon myself, as my goal, as my mission. And then, just finding ways to connect with guys outside of football. I'm not playing on the field with them. So, whether that's hanging out with them off field, whether that's spending time with them in the locker room, whatever the case may be, it definitely taught me, a different way of how to approach being a leader. You don't have to be a leader just from playing in the games and talking to the guys on the sidelines. There are many, many ways to do it. So I think that this past year, although, wasn't what I saw it out to be, it was very, very beneficial. And I learned and took a lot from it that I'm going to continue to carry on with me.
Last question I have: before the Oregon State game, we got word that essentially on the ESPN notification app, it's like Oklahoma offers Ben Arbuckle the position. I'm curious if after that, if it was just kind of like not spoken of, just kind of left alone, or if maybe in the QB room, you guys were like, hey, are you thinking of doing this? Like, what, can you share any insight on those conversations?
Yeah, we never really touched upon it as a QB room. I'm not sure if the other guys, had individual internal conversations with other guys, but as far as the QB room, I mean, we were pretty focused on, you know, what we had to do. We make jokes and we hang out in the QB room, but you know, 90% of the time it's business. And that's what it was in there. You know, we kept what was in front of us, and there wasn't much chatter about that going on.
Awesome. Well, Zevi, really appreciate the time, the transparency, being able to hear more of your background. Looking forward to seeing you back out there next year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Zevi, thank you again for the time too. And then, hey, every Coug that's listening, you know, if you guys are wanting to contribute to the Cougar Collective or a certain player, remember the Cougar Collective says, hey, you can Venmo them, Cash App, whatever you want, and you can put a note on it. Hey, I want Zevi to get this, or hey, I want this. So remember that, okay? The Coug Collective, any way you want to contribute. Reach out to Tim Brandel. He's a fantastic person. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So we want to make sure we're supporting our Cougs here that are in Pullman. And Zevi, thank you very much for the time today. That we really appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.